There need to be vast improvements in this area and benchmarks put in place.
Should Executive Director Bass answer for this?
I think so. He's head of it. Yes, absolutely.
2 years ago, one of the largest government agencies in Texas promised to make some big changes to how it handled diversity and discrimination.
Harassment, retaliation, and discrimination have no place here. And if we determine that anyone employed here is guilty of those things, they will also no longer have a place here.
After our investigation found hundreds of harassment complaints from people of color and female employees at the Texas Department of Transportation, the agency said it was making strides toward equality. But our Avery Travis has uncovered new allegations among TxDOT's 13,000 workers and many complaints going unsubstantiated, revealing there are still miles left to go.
Yes, Josh. In fact, the data shows a spike in complaints over the last 2 years since our first report. In 2017, there were 49 complaints filed with the agency. The next year, in 2018, after our investigation, there were nearly 70 complaints filed. And in 2019, 93. Now, over the past 2 months, people have been protesting, calling for a change to the way people of color are treated throughout our society. But some TxDOT employees tell us they feel like there's been very little change within the agency. And while they're serving the state of Texas, it feels like the state isn't always listening.
These comments were said throughout the day. Let's stand up in your face and tell you, you need to go back where you came from. You don't belong here. Trump needs to make a bigger wall.
In the field and in the office. Several employees at the TxDOT district headquarters in San Angelo say they hear it all too often.
It makes you feel like you're not worthy. And all your hard work that you put into that field, you feel like it's a slap in the face. I love my job. I love it. But it's just certain people that make it impossible for you to do your job.
In order to keep their jobs, these employees asked to remain anonymous as they detailed the racial jokes and even slurs they say still sting.
How much did these comments affect your work?
My work did affect it to a point to where I wouldn't deal with the person that would give these comments. I'd avoid them. I wouldn't be in the same room as them if I could be somewhere else.
One of them filed an official complaint back in 2018, just weeks after our first investigation. According to agency documents, this employee, who is a person of color, reported hearing things like, "This is America, speak English," and jokes about the Ku Klux Klan like, "I'll go home and get my white sheet and take care of this." When TxDOT investigated the complaint, they found multiple employees were concerned, and one told them, "Everyone in this section jokes around, but some take it to the extreme."
This doesn't feel like a joke to you.
No, it's no joke. It's not.
That year, of the nearly 70 complaints TxDOT received, 44% were substantiated, ending in some kind of disciplinary action, including this one in San Angelo. TxDOT records show 2 employees were fired and a supervisor there was demoted.
It did change, but you still hear it, and it's hush-hush.
The next year, in 2019, the amount of complaints total statewide shot up 36%. We asked the head of HR at the agency why.
Based on the information I have, I think it's due to the individuals being more comfortable, being able to have a venue and a resource to go to. And I think it also builds the trust. I think the trust is out there now that they know we want an inclusive environment.
David McMillan says they've made strides, offering more avenues for workers to report complaints and making yearly trips out to the different districts to check in.
The way to do that is to make sure these allegations, these issues are addressed and action is taken.
Those who have come forward with complaints.
Days after our original investigation, TxDOT employees noted a poster campaign encouraging employees to report discrimination and harassment. McMillan says their efforts have helped more employees come forward. In 2019, with complaints on the rise, substantiated complaints actually dropped. Just 25% resulted in disciplinary action, sometimes termination, sometimes probation, but sometimes just a verbal warning. In San Angelo, one employee told us that's why they didn't bother filing an official complaint, feeling it wouldn't be taken seriously or kept confidential at their office.
By the time you get to the parking lot, everybody knows about it. People are calling you, "Hey, what happened?" And you're like, "How did they know about it?" It's very hard. It's very hard seeing that when you feel that you've gone up the chain of command and then you just feel that you're being ignored.
Do you think, though, on the whole, that employees are happy with how they're being treated?
I think on a whole, I think our employees are feeling more and more respected due to this trust. I feel like any individual that comes up with a complaint, we need to treat it like if it was my family.
McMillan also noted TxDOT is still trying to recruit a more diverse workforce, targeting universities and associations for women and minorities. Yet TxDOT employment data shows in 2018 fewer than half of applicants were white, but ended up filling more than 55% of openings at the agency. The next year, 2% fewer of their applicants were white, but took 56% of the open jobs. This all comes after a 2017 legislative audit found TxDOT was falling short of equal opportunity standards for Black, Hispanic, and female workers. And lawmakers on the State House Transportation Committee were calling for change.
There need to be vast improvements in this area and benchmarks put in place.
It's time for TxDOT to wake up to the year 2018 and understand that that can't be allowed.
The House Committee on Transportation will now come to order.
But 2 years later, no action on this issue from the same committee. We reached out to more than a dozen lawmakers who've rotated onto the committee tasked with overseeing TxDOT to hear what progress they've seen from the agency. Several declined to comment. Most never responded. The employees in San Angelo tell us the silence hurts nearly as much as the jokes and harassment.
It's gotten to the point where you don't even want to go to work because you know that you're going to face something when you go.
And you think a lot of it boils down to the color of your skin?
Yes.
I don't think I know it does.
We reached out to lawmakers in San Angelo to get their response, and Representative Drew Darby said in part, "We need to trust the leadership at TxDOT to be strong and create an environment that is safe and welcoming for everyone." He also said he'd continue to monitor the issue specifically at the San Angelo district office. We've started looking into what other avenues an employee might have to file a complaint outside the organization. The Texas Workforce Commission's Civil Rights Unit investigates whether discrimination happened under the Texas Labor Code. They work in partnership with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission to resolve any allegations. So we'll be digging into TWC's numbers for TxDOT and other state agencies, and we'll have a look at that for you very soon.
Now, Avery, in the week since you first started asking questions, we heard back from one of those San Angelo employees who says that there have been some big changes within their department.
Yeah, they actually say in the last few weeks, their division hired a new manager who they say is really changing the culture of the office for the first time, in their opinion.
Now, this is interesting. 2 years ago, when we first investigated this issue, we highlighted the gender disparities within TxDOT's workforce, and we found that the bulk of complaints were about sexual harassment.
Yeah, this time around, we did find some new numbers that were pretty striking. In the years since the Me Too movement shined a spotlight on sexual harassment complaints, TxDOT still had 14 substantiated complaints in 2018 and 2019 for sexual harassment. We also discovered in the TxDOT data, women made up more than 30% of job applicants both of these years, but only 24% of their new hires, meaning 3/4 of the agency's newest employees are still men.
All right, Avery, thank you very much. Governor Greg Abbott faces a lawsuit for one part of his plan to fight COVID-19.
The governor is using taxpayer funds without going through the legislation.
How a battle between the governor and fellow Republicans could affect party unity heading into an election year. Plus, progress in the race for a vaccine to fight COVID-19. We'll dive deeper into the key differences between two promising vaccines and the role Texans are playing in the process.